This week at the Internet Cafe, the Virtual Doctor. Meet Dr. Patty Britton, director of the online sex clinic. This is Health World, the world's largest website on health and medicine. You can find the answer to almost any medical question at the online Stanford Health Library. And meet nurse Tori Krupp. She started one of the hottest new websites. It's for pregnant women, and it's called the Stork Site. And if you're interested in women's health issues, this is womenshealth.org, where you can consult with a woman specialist. The Virtual Doctor, this week at the Internet Cafe.
The Internet Cafe is brought to you by Z-Auction, the live online shopping experience. Additional funding from PC Connection and Mac Connection, the catalog and online superstore with PC and Mac products, toll-free technical support, and overnight delivery. And by Windows Magazine, delivering desktop, enterprise, and internet computing news, reviews, features, and how-tos for a Windows world, because the world runs on Windows. Additional funding from SoftSource Incorporated, publishers of Pro1 software, educational software for young adults.
So Jane, we're talking about the Virtual Doctor, sort of getting medical advice on the web, and I know you're into this healthcare thing. Would you go seek out a doctor on the internet?
Well, I think about a year ago I have checked a lot of different websites out, but I think a year ago I wasn't feeling terribly comfortable with the quality of the content. But I'm seeing a lot of groups getting started with better content and better things going on. So yeah, I would definitely think about it. I don't think it's a bad place.
Andrew, who are you talking to today?
Talking to the Health Library. They're part of Stanford University, sort of a premier medical facility. And they've got a service on there actually that you can go type in information, type in keywords of health problems or health areas you want to research. They actually have a researcher that will go online, go into the library, pull a whole package, a person, a real person, and we'll send it to you. So I think it's a pretty interesting way of using the net, but also getting more.
So you can get a doctor online, you can get information online for a particular problem. You talk to a sex doctor, right? Another kind of service?
You can get sexual therapy online.
Wow.
In fact, this doctor actually had a practice in New York City. She moved to San Francisco, closed off her practice, and is totally online.
Yeah. Well,
I have a few questions.
We'll talk off.
If the sex advice doesn't work, I'm going to talk to a woman who runs storksite.com.
Or if it did work.
Or if it did work. And if you're pregnant, it's a very interesting, well-done site for pregnant women. And the world's biggest healthcare site called healthy.net. It's 50,000 pages worth of a website. It's really incredible.
Wow.
So the Virtual Doctor on the web this week at the Internet Cafe.
Now, Patty, you are a sex therapist, and you had a practice in New York City, and you've recently moved to San Francisco, and you've moved your practice entirely online. Now, what made you decide to do that?
Well, I've been working with this website for almost 2 years, and it just seemed fitting to leave Manhattan and move to cyberspace. I have a real dedication to delivering sex-positive information and education to as wide an audience as possible, and I consider this cutting-edge sexology right now.
So what are the things that we'd find if we went to your website? What are some of the features that you offer?
Well, it has some of the traditional kinds of things you see on other help websites, such as a column once a week and Q&A type things regarding news in the sex field, etc. But some of the distinguishing things that we have are each week I review a sex product or a sex toy as part of what we offer, and that's a lot of fun, and it draws a lot of attention, and then that particular product is sold in the clinic store. We also have a sex quiz every week, and we offer live chat to our visitors where I host topics a few hours a week and conduct what I consider to be virtual therapy in the chat room. We also have paid email consultation directly with me, and also we're about to start one-on-one live consultations so that somebody can actually get virtual therapy online.
Now, one of the nice things about being on the internet is the anonymity, in a sense, that you can ask these kind of sensitive questions. What would be some of the samples of typically asked questions, issues that you need to consult on for folks?
Well, I think that's a really important question because what astounds me is the sincerity and the range of questions. It's everything from we're virgins living in Pakistan, how do we broach the subject of our marriage, to we've been married 25 years and we need to know how to spice it up, to questions about body parts and size and body image issues, and of course sexual functioning, and it really runs the gamut.
So now, also, in the internet world, typically with websites and groups, we do start to build a community of sorts. In your case, do you have a sex therapy community that's being built up? Are there people that go to your website regularly for community?
There are, and I think that's one of the wonderful parts about this particular site. One of the rooms in the site that's particularly popular is the confession room, where people have a chance to either submit stories or even disclose very deep personal information about themselves or read about other people's experiences. And I think that helps feed the sense of community because people feel connected to those who are already in the room. But there's also live chat, and we're finding that we're building a community of around 30 to 50 regulars who come in, and I know their stories, I know their lives, and we actually track each other, and it's quite touching.
So in terms of this online environment, do you think that online therapy of this kind of sort is a substitute for office visits with a doctor?
No, not at all. I think that's a very common misperception about what online is doing. I think it's a great adjunct for face-to-face counseling or therapy, but I don't think that's ever going to go away.
Now, what's the next step for your website? What are some of the new things you're going to do?
Well, this week actually we're going to be opening live one-on-one consultation with me, and I'm very excited to say that there are other consultation opportunities with some very well-known sex therapists and sexuality educators who are going to be coming on board. And actually we're sort of looking at it as a group practice model, because this is almost like a virtual model of what a clinic would be like, with a full service and all kinds of types of range of services.
When you go to a medical or healthcare website, you often get more than just information. You get really a support group or a virtual community of people who share a particular medical problem or condition. One of the better medical conditions to have is to be pregnant, and if that's your condition, there's a great website called storksite.com, and that's your baby, if I can use that phrase.
Absolutely.
Where did the idea come from? I know you're a nurse, but did it come from nursing or did it come from your own pregnant experience?
Certainly came from nursing. I've worked with pregnant women for years and years, and I know how they think. And when I first became sort of internet savvy and started to learn about the internet, I went looking for the kinds of information that we were providing to people offline.
And what'd you find?
And I wasn't very happy with what I found on the internet.
What was wrong with it?
You know, I think in real life people learn in a variety of different ways. And on the internet I either found very technical medical information or information that I didn't feel was reliable, or necessarily the kind of information I'd want to transmit to somebody.
Okay, so how do you solve that problem on Stork site?
I think that a couple different ways. One is the information that's medical, that's on the site, is very reliable, sensible, down-to-earth kinds of information. But I think the other part of it is we've created a community, and my being a nurse as opposed to a physician has made me much more personable for people.
All right, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So people can ask questions, they feel comfortable with somebody they can talk to, so they get a different type of learning in addition to hard medical information.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Do women come there mostly simply to talk to each other and share pregnancy stories, or do they come there looking for hard information? This is supposed to be happening at 2 months, I should be feeling this, or whatever.
Right. You know, when I started Stork Site, it was designed to be strictly information, although we added some community features. And my initial thought was people would come for that, and I was very surprised because almost instantly women around the world found each other. So perhaps a woman may initially come for information, but she comes back again and again because she's made friends. And she's made friends perhaps in another part of the world, but who can relate to what she happens to be feeling.
Doesn't matter what part of the world you're in, you're pregnant,
Absolutely.
you're pregnant, right? Now, let's talk about your site. There's a section called Picket Fence. Is that the
Yes.
area where women sort of hang out and talk with each other?
Absolutely.
Just basically a chat room for pregnant women?
No, we have 52 bulletin boards, we've got 16 chat rooms, we have support groups for women who perhaps have difficulty with pregnancy or they have infertility issues. We've got chat rooms and bulletin boards if you have 6 children or twins. Any variety of things, you can find somebody who you can relate to.
Now, you've got something called Babygram, I think. What's that?
Each week, a Storkie, and that's what they've come to call themselves, can come onto Stork Site, see their front porch, and they will get an update as to what their baby's doing each week of a pregnancy. So if I'm at 3
months or whatever, this is what should be happening right now?
Yes, because it can be really overwhelming to read books and to be learning about labor when you're still nauseous from early pregnancy. So we've provided a way for people to get information just at the time that they want it.
Now, something called Name Nest, is that to figure out the name for your baby?
You have thousands and thousands of baby names to pick from. We help by providing a rotating one every week. Anything you can think about related to the time around having a baby or a new child, we have on Storksite.
Now, what about dads? I mean, can I go on there
Sure.
and find guys to talk to?
You know, we found we have a whole community of guys that kind of secretly want to know more information. They may
Right.
not feel comfortable talking about it. So we have partnergrams for them where they can follow along. In addition to the babygrams, they can see what are things that might be nice for mom to do this month. They have their own support network amongst Storksite. So lots of stuff for dads, for grandparents.
Do you get into the stuff about the delivery room and what you should be doing and how to support your wife at that time? And
We
so
do
on?
everything. We've had people take their laptop, believe it or not, to the hospital and have dad posting to their friends on
Wow.
Storksite what's happening.
Now,
It's amazing.
pregnancy is a condition that ends after 9 months. Do you find people still hang around Storksite though?
Absolutely. That's why we've made it last for now up until a year after, because our moms didn't want to go. They have formed their own friendships and they're carrying those friendships offline. And so we want to provide information and stuff for them for the remainder
great.
of their growing years.
And it's storksite.com.
Yes.
Thanks, Tori.
So, Karen, you are a women's health physician.
That's right.
And you've started up a forum for women's health, which is a website. And you've received a lot of really rave reviews, not only from popular website reviewers, but also from a lot of sites that are in the medical business. Now,
Right.
why do you think your site has been so successful in creating this forum for women's health?
Because I think that we sort of get to the heart of issues. We take a lot of research that's very difficult to understand and point out things that even sometimes, pretty high up university professors hadn't noticed before.
So give me an example of the types of things that you've done at your website in terms of the people who've come and posted a question. What are some of the success stories that you've had?
Well, one time I had a woman who got an abnormal Pap result, and it kind of got left on her phone answering machine on a Friday afternoon. And that's very typical, just the way things are going in medicine right now. And she was just, hysterical and really upset and wanted to know what this result was. And actually, it wasn't that bad, so I was able to write back to her and say, this is a very low level of abnormality, and you're just going to be rechecked in a couple weeks, and most people go back to normal and things like that. And she wrote back, she says, I was going away for the weekend. I was so upset, I was crying. She said I would hug you if I could. So, we just kind of relieved a person's anxiety and, kind of prevented them from ruining their weekend.
And so the big thing with this forum is that you have the Ask the Doctor area. So
Exactly.
You can post a question, and then a doctor, a medical doctor, will respond to your question. Now, for example, there's a lot of websites out there that have a lot of discussions of health issues.
Right.
How does somebody know that, for example, your site is answered, the questions are answered by doctors. How does somebody know that these other sites are valid or not? How do you assure people?
It's really difficult because you really don't know who's on the other side of the screen. Probably one of the best indicators is just to look for the person's biography. People who don't want to tell you where they are or where they went to med school. Be a little bit suspicious of that. People who put their name and their face out there are a little bit more credible.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask you, it's unusual to see doctors, part of the medical establishment, doing something like this. How are your peers in the establishment responding to this website and the types of things that you're doing?
Well, people within women's health are very supportive, because we're kind of a progressive specialty, so they're into this kind of use of the media. Some other people are not so happy. It's considered subversive in some circles. But
now, why would it be subversive? I'm not sure I understand.
Because we tell people like it is. We point out things in the research that are different than the conclusions that the researchers came to. And some of them turn out to be pretty valid. Like we were against fen-phen when it first came out over a year ago. And as we said, look out for this, look at the way this is heading. It wasn't the official conclusions, but we turned out to be right.
So there's good information in terms of those types of issues.
Right.
Now, what do you think the future is for this kind of online Ask a Doctor concept? Do you think this is something that healthcare or HMOs are going to start adopting? Do you see any trends that way?
Yeah, I think, we're not the natural enemies of HMOs or anything like that. I think there's a lot of, we're all going in the same direction. HMOs are interested in patient-centered care. In other words, instead of the doctor being the primary case manager, the patient is going to be the primary case manager. You're going to take care of yourself. You're going to get information by yourself and try to make a lot of your own decisions. So I think the online world and letting people get to different types of information is going to be really important.
Dave, what I really like about your site is it's sort of grand central station for healthcare. You know, there are 25,000 healthcare sites out there. You go to healthy.net and you've got your little village metaphor, and I can go to this building or this building or this, find sort of exactly what I want. How did you get the idea to really create Health World?
Well, I've spent some time in the managed care system and found in the U.S. that in fact it needs a new partner, and the partner, I believe, is the individual, the self.
We weren't doing enough for ourselves, just depending too much on the system?
Yeah, and self-managed care is a phrase that we coined to in essence, delineate who we're sided with, and it's the individual, and that they're the missing loop in managed care, we believe.
All right, so on your site, is this sort of alternative medicine? It's not go to the doctor, this hurts me, what do I do, but how do I stay healthy in the first place?
Yes, very much so. And importantly, when you consider alternatives, who is the alternative when you're on the internet? Because if you're in India, maybe the Western United States might be the alternative. And in fact, I think Sue Everett Koop and the World Health Organization says 80% of the world population gets its health and medicine from what we consider alternative in the U.S.
Yeah.
So we're not about alternative medicine, we're about world health information and systems.
But it's not the usual thing, as I say, where you don't feel well, you go to the doctor, say, what drug should I get or what should I do, right?
That's correct.
Now let's talk about some of the things that are on your site. You go into your sort of central village there and you go out into all those different buildings. Talk about some of the different choices that you have there on the site.
Well, depending on what your condition is, if you want higher states of wellness, you might go to the wellness center. Or if you have...
What would I find in the wellness center?
Mind-body medicine, relaxation techniques, qigong, yoga, things like that for higher states of wellness. But at the same time, if you have symptoms, you would go to the health clinic. Just like in the real world, as a physical metaphor. I mean, if I have a symptom of a disease or disorder, I can go in there and click on diseases and conditions and select my disease and condition and find out information about non-invasive techniques for managing it.
So is it basically a reference library? I have something that hurts me somewhere and I go and find out, read some material about that, or do I get specific advice for my situation?
You get both. You can search and get large dissertations, and you can get some specific advice, generally not diagnosing, but only assisting information-wise for where the herbal remedy or the stress technique you might use to help.
Now, there's always an issue when you get to this health or medical stuff, whatever you want to call it on the web, as to how good the information is, how much you can trust it. How do we know that if I go to Health World, I can really believe the sources that are there?
Well, Stuart, I think that's an incredible segment of our site because we've separated and differentiated ourselves that way. All the content is clickable on the author. You can read their bios. They're generally, it's third-party information. They've written books, and they're generally MDs or practitioners somewhere, in the world. So.
All right, how would you suggest somebody use something like Health World? I mean, I do have a doctor, and I do have the sort of normal infrastructure that supports my health care. How do I mix that and what I would do on your website?
I think we're maybe a second opinion for the non-invasive world. We're a second opinion that you can take to find out systems that you might use that do not conflict with your doctor, but probably work as a complementary source of information and resources with your doctor.
Now, you do have access to Medline, which is a lot of traditional medical advice, right?
Yes. We were the first site on the internet to offer Medline for free. A year and a half ago, we bought into the Medline and gave it to the world. And since that time, there's now probably 5 or 6 sites. And we offer Medline in many languages.
Yeah. And you're the biggest health site on the web, right?
Yeah. Health sites, not medicine. Okay, we're about health, which is the ultimate goal.
And it's at healthy.net.
Right.
Thanks, Dave.
Healthy.net. Thank you, Stuart.
Now, Nora, I think you have an interesting perspective on health sites. I've seen a lot of sites on the internet that offer a huge amount of information. People have to sort of go out and search for it. And you have a site based on a real library here in Palo Alto that sort of acts as a librarian on the internet when it comes to health sites. How did you guys go from being an actual small health library or a set of libraries to an online site?
Well, we actually conceived of our site as another branch, and when we talk about it as the internet branch.
Right.
And we wanted it to act in the same way that the Health Library does for patrons who walk into the library, where the material is already classified and is systematically presented so that people can find what they need easily and can become their own advocates. We likewise wanted to create a website that would essentially allow people to research with some sense of control, with an idea that a medical librarian had been there before them, had previewed the sites, and had
was able to
chosen them.
find, right, and I looked on the site, I saw some very good classifications, everything from, you know, basic health and nutrition to diabetes to arthritis on down the line. So that looks good. Now, what about people who want a little bit more, who want, you know, to find some information but also want to have maybe somebody else gather some of that information? I saw a service on there. It looked like you pay a certain amount of money and you guys will do some searching.
We have a research request service, and we have it in the library and we have it on our site, and it's really for people who either don't have the time or just don't really know whether they're doing a good enough job researching and getting everything that's out there that's available.
And I mean, a professional researcher is something you just can't, you know, you can't harness unless you really...
We do it all the time, and we do it a lot more easily than the average person. And it simply involves downloading the form and filling it out and either faxing it to us. You can phone us. We have an 800 number.
Can you email it?
You can email it.
Great.
We have an email address on there, and we're happy to do the service for them. There is a charge, and there's a sliding scale according to how deeply we go into the different materials.
Oh, good, good. Now, okay, what would I get in a package like that? Say if a friend of mine maybe had a shoulder problem or something he wanted looked at, would you?
Well, first of all, we would probably go into some of the materials that are on a database that we subscribe to that has over about 250,000 articles on it, professional journals, and pull off some full text articles, some dictionary definitions, some things that would give you a background. We'd move into the books. The texts that we have are really superior to even some of the information you get on the internet.
So not everything is online at this point.
Absolutely not. And that's where a research packet really complements what you might be able to find on your own on the internet. A lot of it's there, but not all of it.
And this would be a good way to augment it. You know, speaking of that also, I was up on the site last night. I have a friend who has some carpal tunnel stuff, and I found an audio lecture from a doctor here in the Bay Area on there. It looks like you guys are doing some good stuff with multimedia as well.
We're trying to appeal to as wide an audience as possible, and also to bring the most immediate information to our internet users, simply because we have a lot of things going on at Stanford all the time, and the Health Library is able to tap into it. We have the audios, and we also have a series of videos. We have some trailers just to show what we have in the library, and then we have some full-length MPEG videos on talks that are being given at Stanford, current information on research that's happening right now, and we'd like to be able to make that available as quickly as we can to the worldwide audience.
Right, that's great. No, I really enjoyed the lecture, just to be able to have the immediacy of feeling that you're on the internet, you're hearing a professional talk and download it right away. Where do you see the future of this stuff going?
We'd like to see more and more multimedia things going on to our website for just the reason that I told you, simply because a lot happens at Stanford all the time.
And you can really
And we'd like to put it right out there so that it isn't just limited to the audience that can come and hear in Palo Alto, but is actually there for any of our online patrons.
Good. Well, we'll check out the local branch on the internet.
So Jane said she trusts this stuff at the beginning of the program before we talked to all these people. Would you trust the web for medical advice now?
I don't think it's going to take the place of doctors and actually hands-on treatment, but there's some good sites. I mean, the Health Library was a good site. I've actually had some back problems recently and have done some research. And
from being on the computer too much.
Well, who knows? But, you know, I've been able to go on and find some sites actually by patients who, you know, the doctor couldn't diagnose it, and they said, I know what's wrong, I'm putting up my own site. So there were some good resources on there. So.
What do you think?
Well, I think that the work that Karen Sarpalis is doing with the Forum for Women's Health is, I think it's the beginning of bridging the gap between, you know, the establishment and ourselves as individuals being able to get that information flow going better. So I think there's a lot of good opportunity there.
I think Andrew's point, your point was very good. What you find, I think, or what I find on these medical websites is not so much the doctors, the experts, but the other patients. And you can talk to people who are suffering from the same problems, and you can get second and third and fourth opinions because they tell you what their doctor told them. And there's this sense of sort of community and support, and people feel better, and I'm not the only one in the world who's dealing with this problem. And I think there's a tremendous psychological benefit to going online seeking health advice from other people like yourself, not just from the doctor. So I think there is a lot of worthwhile stuff going on there. That's it for this week, The Virtual Doctor on the Web. We'll see you here next week, again, at the Internet Cafe.
The Internet Cafe is brought to you by Z-Auction, the live online shopping experience. Additional funding from PC Connection and Mac Connection, the catalog and online superstore with PC and Mac products, toll-free technical support, and overnight delivery. And by Windows Magazine, delivering desktop, enterprise, and internet computing news, reviews, features, and how-tos for a Windows world, because the world runs on Windows. Additional funding from SoftSource Incorporated, publishers of Pro1 software, educational software for young adults. To purchase a videotape copy of today's program, call toll-free 1-888-310-7850. Please specify the show number and the topic.